Okay, so when we talk about the hips coming up and down, side to side, front and back, all of that good stuff, you really want to start to be aware of the mechanics and how that actually starts to impact the rest of your body. And then the other thing I want to say is that a lot of you guys ask me about my exercise gear and my outfits that I wear. I wanted to show you that if you're like, oh, I don't want to get new clothing, but I want to look really cute when I dance, just put on a basic pair of leggings in the bottom, and I rolled up my top today. So I wanted to show you that even though I just rolled up my top, it looks cute, right? I just used a turtleneck that was a little bit more form fitting, and I rolled it under, right? And I allowed myself to just expose my midriff in order for me to see my movement. But this is not exercise. This is just my daily clothing. So roll it up, right? Get fun with it. And even if you have a looser shirt, just tucking it under your bra is actually pretty cute. So I just wanted to offer that. You don't necessarily need to spend any money in order to look cute when you dance, nor do you need to change your clothes. So I want to offer that too, because some of you are like, oh, I'm not wearing the right clothes. There's no right clothes. Just dance, right? So don't use it as an excuse. Okay, back to the movement. So we're talking about moving our hips side to side like this, up and down, and then the twist front and back. So, how it impacts other places in your body is for sure your weight. Where does your weight shift to? Where do you start to feel it in your feet? So, for example, as I am putting my hands on my hips right here and I'm feeling my hips slide side to side, I feel the weight difference in my feet. So, when you're feeling your hips and you're asking yourself what's happening with my hip work and where's my body, if you feel a change in your feet, that's one cue right there that you're shifting your weight. The other thing too is if you visually see your feet rocking back and forth a little bit from side to side, even from front to back, that's a cue that you're changing your weight in some way, shape, or form, either intentionally or unintentionally. Okay, so that's one thing you can help identify what's happening with your hips. And of course, feel your hips the whole time you're doing it. The other thing that you can be really, really mindful of when your hips are coming up and down is that if your feet are on the ground, and you are wanting your hip to lift and drop without any kind of outward movement, you have to allow your legs to bend and straighten. If you don't, what ends up happening is that your hip will pop out because it literally has nowhere to go. So there has to be a little bit of give in the knee. So when I'm putting my hands on my hips here and I'm feeling the hip come up, you see how this leg straightens? If I locked it here and I came down, like I wouldn't be able to, it's weird, right? Because I can't actually put my hip down without dropping my foot. So if I want to keep my heel up, how do I end up pushing out, right? So when you're feeling your hip, you end up pushing out like this, trying to drop the hip versus allowing it to drop right underneath you by softening the knee. This is super important, okay? So then the other thing that you want to be mindful of is you only need as much bend in your knees as it takes for you to execute the movement. You don't have to overbend like this in Raqs Sharqi, which is a little bit more of an upright position. If you're doing Beledi or Shabi or Maraganat, maybe you can sit, or you would be sitting a little bit more. But when you're wanting to have a little bit more of an upright, taller look, only bend enough to get the movement. It doesn't have to be drastic unless you're wanting a very big movement, but you don't need very much, just enough to execute. But if it's locked, you're going to see yourself pop like this, or you're going to have it out. So when you're here and you feel the hip coming up, notice, do you feel it coming up and out, or do you feel it coming up and in closer to your rib cage? So it's a great cue for you to just pay attention to your body. And I'm all about putting your hands on your body and feeling what's happening. So it's just a way for you to be mindful of what's going on versus your hands always being out here and you're not paying attention to, like, oh, and then the hands come like this. So if you're working on sustaining your posture, that's great. Like keep them out and do that thing. But occasionally I still think that you need to feel your hips. Okay, so then we talk about twisting. So twisting the hip front and back, you're going to feel that one hip comes forward, one hip comes back. So now that your hands are on your hip, the tendency will actually for your torso to move. So just be mindful of that, that when you actually do the movement, you would not move the shoulders necessarily with your hip twist. So when you're feeling it, a great way to do that is to actually place yourself on one leg and then working one of the hips at a time. So I'm just going to have myself place my hand on this hip here and feel that come forward and then back and then forward and back. And you notice I only use 2 fingers so I don't take my whole arm with me. The other thing you can do is use the opposite arm right here, twist forward and back and not allow this one to move, right? So you can use the 2-finger approach right here if you need to feel that hip twist come front and back. And this, when you're feeling it, it's pushing into your hand. Like I'm going to punch my hand. So if my hand is right here, I'm going to punch my hand, punch my hand, punch my hand. Or I'm going to feel the hip push into my hand as my hand is placed on it. So these are great simple cues for you to pay attention to how to feel your hips and what exactly that information is useful for. It's really to clean up your movement very quickly and to understand how to engage your body differently to get the move that you want. So don't underestimate the simplicity of just feeling your hips and really getting that feedback for your brain and how it lands in your body. If you love this video, let me know below what your thoughts are on it. I would love for you to join my classes. If you're like, yo, I just started belly dancing, no problem. Join my newsletter. I send out a weekly newsletter about how you can get started in belly dancing and how to move more quickly and easily in your body today without that feeling of like, man, I have to do so much before I can actually start belly dancing. It's not the case. You can start immediately and today and very simply. So join me in my newsletter. Make sure that you click on the link below, and I'll see you next time.